Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of our Calling Reimagined series. As you know, in this, we've been talking to our customers, to our partners. We actually had an industry analyst in the first episode talk about what's going on in the calling marketplace. Today, we have a very special guest. As we all know, during the pandemic, one of the things that we've seen is across all walks of life and industries and market segments, people were reacting differently. But if we were to pick one sector that was really affected and touched all of our lives, it was the education sector. You know, schools, universities were the ones who were most affected, not just in the fact that teachers and students had to adapt, but they had to reimagine the way education actually happens in the new world. And I think it's an industry that's at the forefront as we come out of the pandemic as to how the world will actually look. So today we have John Anderson. He's from the school district of Pickens County in South Carolina. Welcome, John.
Hello.
And as always, we have Lorrissa Horton, who's the VP and GM of our calling business here at Cisco. And what we're going to do today is talk to John about his experiences as he reimagined calling for the school district. But first, John, looks like you're actually in a school building. Are you guys back in buildings?
Yeah, we were fortunate. We have been face-to-face since August. So our kids, we've missed a total of 20 days as a district. Most of our kids have been in face-to-face. We have, of course, some hybrid and some families that couldn't, for health reasons, be face-to-face. And so to be able to serve everyone has been a real benefit for our community.
Awesome. Great. Well, I think what we want to do is jump into how you thought about calling. And I think Lorrissa was bringing this up earlier, which is you're sort of at the forefront of cloud transformation. And, nothing against school districts and stuff. We love the fact that you're leading it. What made you first think about we need to rethink the way communications and calling works for your school district?
Yeah, so in 2019, we reevaluated our communications plan, and we wanted a unified communications platform that could do phones and video calling. We really liked the Webex platform for the video calls. And then when we were able to the Webex calling, it was a nice integration and everything. We were able to pull it into one pane of glass, which is really nice.
Okay. And Lorrissa, I think we hear this from a lot of our other customers and partners about single pane of glass. But do you think we're starting to see a new trend where people are rethinking it's not just a PBX or just a dial tone or a phone? Are people sort of rethinking this? What are you seeing from other customers?
Yeah, I think, you mentioning John is at the forefront here is something that I cannot, express enough. First of all, the fact that you guys were doing hybrid. So it wasn't that everyone was at home or everyone was back in the school, but you had to support all of those different cases. And we've definitely heard that people are also coming and going. So they may be back in the school and then back at home. And how do you create continuity across that hybrid nature? I think it's actually a much harder problem than just moving to the cloud. It was, how do you continue to support everyone as they are constantly changing? That's the big part. So amazing that you guys are able to tackle that. I think alongside that is where the conversation then blends into, well, are they going to be using a phone? Are they going to be logging into a video call? Those may also be changing every day, depending on where they're going to be going to school from. And I think that's where people are reevaluating what's the right solution for them. When these are being decided in isolation, I don't think people get the best experience across both. And so the fact that you mentioned, hey, you had Webex meetings and adding Webex calling, you get to manage everything, whether it be a physical phone or that room or those students from wherever they call or, join a meeting from. That's the piece that I hear the biggest value. Would love to hear more about how you guys actually run the school, given that you have these different populations, because that's, I think, the hardest part is that hybrid nature.
Yeah, the answer to your question, if they're connecting from a phone or from a video, is yes. We have to be ready for whatever happens, and COVID brought that to the front. I mean, nobody thought on Friday when we went home we wouldn't come back for 6 months. And a lot of schools went through that transition. We were fortunate that we'd already started our implementations with Webex calling. We did training for our staff in the Webex platform on Friday, the 14th, and on Sunday night, the 16th, they told us we weren't coming back to work. So we had 3 days of missed instructions so that we could get devices in teachers' hands, the phones out, all of that stuff. We picked right back up and went back to work, and the students were just remote at that point. So we have to be flexible, and I would say you have to have a good team and good partnerships, and surround yourself with and give people the freedom to try things. And that's where Webex came in for us. I have a good crew. I can't take the credit. My guys did all the work. I just make them look good and make sure they have what they need. But we have been very fortunate to have integrated when we did, and Webex calling came in at just the right time for us. And it saved us a lot of effort and a lot of headache.
Great.
One thing that I just wanted to add there, thing I heard from a lot of the educators were that we wanted to have video on all the time, but it turned out some students were just not living in areas or homes where that was possible. There was either limited bandwidth or, challenges with connectivity from the homes. Did you guys see this? Did you see that some students had to call in instead?
Yeah, we did. We, in rural as we are, we're in the mountains, and there are a lot of families that cell coverage couldn't support the bandwidth to run video. So we had to have a way for them to connect and to be able to call in. And then to teachers coming in and out of the buildings, they can open the call on their phone, on their app, on their smartphone. And then when they get to their desk, pull the call to their desk phone, and there's no loss there, which is really nice. And for administrators too, I myself, we rotated 2 weeks in, 2 weeks out during the peak of the pandemic, excuse me. But that was the only time that we were out as administrators. We were here the rest of the time. And so we've been able to continue operations, and it's been really, really fortunate. We have some people that are still remote for health reasons, but they are still able to work full time, full schedule, which is nice.
Yeah. It's quite remarkable that you've been able to almost keep going through all of these difficult times and also go through a technology transformation while you're dealing with a complete business transformation on the way, sort of education is going through this, John. How can you talk a little bit about your experience? Did you, I'm glad you picked Webex, but did you look at a variety of solutions?
We did. We looked at all of the platforms. We looked at, if I can name the competitors, we looked
Since you picked Webex at the end, you can name them all, John.
Yeah, we looked at Zoom, and we looked at Microsoft Teams, and I have a good enough relationship with our Cisco partner that I could give him a hard time and say, hey, if you can't do this, I know Teams can do this. But we were able to work this out and make it work for us and work for Pickens County, and that was my number one priority, was making sure my students and my teachers were taken care of, and we were able to do that, which was amazing.
Good.
when you really look back.
Yeah, I think that's really great. Like, we know there's a lot of options out there. I think the area that we really tried to lean in on is how do we help the administrators manage better, whether that is the phone or the application, because we don't know. There were so many times, we thought everyone was going back, and then all of a sudden everyone was at home. And I think it's those kinds of things that people didn't necessarily plan for that you guys seem to have handled without any challenges. Like, you guys were, you mentioned there's still people who are remote today.
There were challenges. There were just unexpected things that came up. Nobody knew the bandwidth requirements at the beginning. And then you go to a business cycle where some people are early risers and they start at 5 in the morning, and some people like to work at 10 o'clock at night. And so trying to coordinate schedules, because everything has to be flexible to work for what's best, right? So we had to shift our model and be a lot more flexible. And that was early on with our superintendent, our senior leadership team. Flexibility is the word of the day. And it was the word of the day for about 6 months. But we were able to stay flexible and continue to operate. And that was our number one focus, is finish with the beginning in mind. And so.
Yeah. Lorrissa, are you starting to see, I know that education is a key vertical, not just for the collaboration business, but for all of Cisco. And I know we're working with other universities and schools, but are you seeing the same thing from, I know John's at the forefront of this wave, but do you see education as a key vertical from the calling business perspective?
For sure. I think it came up and became even more apparent during the pandemic. Since at first it was, we're all going to video. And, as you mentioned, some of our competitors definitely jumped in there. And then we started hearing more and more requests for calling because it was, hey, I live in the mountains, or I live somewhere where I can't rely on my connectivity. There was just general challenges in the neighborhood that are outside of the control of that particular end user. And calling became something that had started to come up. I think the other area where it was interesting was socioeconomic challenges, where there were some families who were like, we don't have internet at home, and we were perfectly fine on our phones until everyone was at home. And that really changed the expectations. And so it became a really good way to stay connected, stay involved, with everyone else in their community. So for sure, we're seeing that. I also think in general, when we look at the administrators that are running the school, a lot of the processes are still based on the phone system. And not necessarily on scheduling, right? So how you reach all the various people, how they talk to each other. There was a lot of phone scenarios, even how parents, I would say, called into the school. Like not everything got replaced with a digital, email or message. Anything with urgency typically happened with a phone call, maybe to the principal, maybe to the teacher, right? And so I think those are so important in how parents and the community connected with the educators. And so definitely a big one there. I think having the app available, so there are other ways to talk to each other that are, become new mediums for connection, was a really interesting change, right? So having parents being able to talk to teachers via chat was not something that was common. But since they can go get the app on webex.com and they can go and talk to the teacher, and all of the security and compliance is available on the platform, we saw educators leaning in saying, wait, like this works, like I don't have to send a broad email to everyone. I can go and talk to one parent. And this is where requirements like ethical walls started coming into play. And we definitely, invested in that and continue to invest in those kinds of areas so that education can be successful on our platform.
Great. John, a question for you. I know you said you looked at other platforms. And by the way, who is the partner? You said you beat up your Cisco partner, but they're still good to you.
He was actually a Cisco employee.
Okay.
Ron Cisco at Cisco, if you want to. Yeah.
Okay.
I like to give him a hard time, and I pick on his NFL teams, and we're just friends. We developed a relationship, and so
good.
Yeah. Anytime I check him,
That's awesome. But where I was going with the question, John, is that it's always great for our teams, both our customers as well as people working Lorissa's organization on calling, when to have a customer talk about, and I have the ability to pull the call from a mobile device as I move into the office. We have developers and designers who worked on that feature, so I'm glad to hear you picked that one out. It's one of my favorite features. But when you were going through the evaluation process, we have customers who are focused on there's price, there's performance, there's security, there's experience. What was it? Was there like one or two key things that you said, this is why Webex is the right fit? Could you talk a little bit about that?
For us, it really came down to the integration with calling and the video platform. The vendors, when we looked at them, didn't have an integration to the level that we have with Webex and what we were expecting. When we were looking at 2019, we did not expect video to be as big of a contender as it became. We were more looking at replacing our calling system and then adding video to it, and it ended up being video with a calling system. So we looked at all of the different platforms, and you could achieve some level of integration, but not a full integration platform for platform. And so for us, that was what we wanted. We wanted full integration, so that for my guys who manage it and did the implementation with us, we were able to do the full integration with both systems at once, and one set of training, and the features work, and having the same client parity, so that all the features are the same. If it's a web client, if it's the app client, if it's the phone client, the features are there and the buttons are in the same places. All of those things came into play when we started looking, and that was a big deal for us.
Great. Lorissa,
you mentioned you started training on a Friday and got people up and running by the Monday. Like, that is a really huge accomplishment. Like, congratulations.
It was. We do district-wide professional development days, and that Friday was Webex Day for everyone. And it was on the schedule at the beginning of the year. So this was pre-COVID. We had scheduled this day thinking, well, they'll have the summer to play with it. And then COVID hit, and it was really Friday to Sunday, and then we were out. And so to have that training, it was just the timing was, everything worked out for us. It was really a blessing for us to have been on this road already.
Yeah, it's good to hear, Lorrissa, that they have Webex Day in South Carolina, apparently.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing for
Yeah.
all of us to have. As you look at the future, John, what are some of the things you're planning for the school district at large? Are you looking at other platforms? You've already made a major transformation. What's coming next? If you were to talk to some of the other educators and administrators out there, where do you see the market, or where do you see what's next on the plate for you?
I think the big thing for us right now is integration with our LMS. And we're already working on that with Cisco, but to tighten that up and to really make those two systems talk to each other so that the teacher can schedule her WebEx, record the WebEx, and post it in her LMS in a single function and not have to go between the two. And then also I see administrative meetings, especially with parents who possibly can't come in. Transit's hard for some of our families. It's just when they're rural. So to be able to have a video conference and connect the parents, and I think we're going to start partnering with telehealth is another place where we're looking at with our nurses. And then our big thing is virtualization for our students. We have some of the heavier applications the kids use require more processing power than a Chromebook can do. So we're going to work on fixing that and integrating that also in this platform so that they can do everything in one place. My plan is to have a single pane of glass for everything. And then at the end of the day, I sleep better when I can go to one place and look for it. And so that's what we're looking for.
Great. Lorrissa, I know that you talked about, when John talked about integrating to LMSs and other platforms, that's been a key differentiator for WebEx. Can you talk a little bit about, what our plans are for integrations and staying open? I know John also evaluated some of the other players in the industry who aren't as open as we are. Is that the strategy for Cisco going forward as well, is to make more of these available?
Yeah, for sure. I think we, integrated into Canvas, Moodle, a lot of the common ones that we heard. We've had those integrations for a while. We worked with a great partner in Volvio in getting those out there. And the thing that we actually found, that there was a lot of school districts who didn't even have an official LMS.
Yep.
And so we actually released a beta last fall around WebEx Classroom, which was a very, very lightweight, but like just something versus nothing, which we heard a lot of people just didn't really have much as a baseline. So glad to hear, John, you guys are taking that on, that integration. I think it does drive a lot more value because it's just less steps for the teachers. I think we really focused on, at the end of the day, the teachers want to teach, not learn all of the technology they need just to organize, how they teach and connect. And so that's been at the forefront for sure. I think the openness is super important. Everyone wants to pick the right tools that work for them. We are that fabric that connects people in the conversations while they're working on the tools. And we've taken that strategy very clearly and integrating into all the places that people need to work. I think that is something that we are very dedicated to in terms of making sure that you guys can always do your best as educators, as administrators, with the tools that you pick, and then you can have all of that work and integrate with WebEx across the board.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Lorrissa, thanks for that. And John, thank you for being at the forefront of it. Look, my mom was a teacher, so I appreciate the work you're doing in South Carolina. And I'm looking forward to having you back on a future episode to talk about some of the other integrations and things that you're doing in the school district. For those of you who are listening to our episode, we will be back with our next episode. So stay tuned. It'll be a customer or partner. And what you need to do is go to our LinkedIn page, follow John, Lorrissa, or me, and find out about that event. But thanks to John and Lorrissa for today's episode. Thank you.